Hello students, welcome to YouTube session. In this session, we are going to discuss on the chapter OOP concept. So here OOP stands for Object Oriented Programming. So before moving on to the depth of this chapter, let me brief you what all points I'm going to cover in this particular chapter. So in this chapter, we are going to study what is computer programming. Next, we are going to study what is procedure-oriented and object-oriented programming, including its characteristics. Then we are going to study what are the advantages and disadvantages of OOP. And finally, with the applications of OOP. So let's see one by one. So here, the first topic is computer programming. So program is nothing but it is a set of instructions given to a computer to perform a specific operations. Or I can say it is a computational device which is used to process the data under the control of a computer program. Now for example, if I want to compute a sum of two numbers, what I'll be doing is first I'll be accepting the two numbers. Then I'll be calculating the sum of two numbers and then I'm going to store the final result. So what am I doing here is I'm following a set of instructions. Instructions are nothing but they are the English-like statements which I am following in order to get the desired output. So while executing the program, the raw data is processed into a desired output format and these programs are written in a particular programming language. So when I say that I want to compute a sum of two numbers, so this program can be written in any of the programming language. Then we need to understand what is programming language. A programming language is nothing but it is a formal language which comprises of a set of instructions that produces the various kinds of outputs. So the example for the programming languages are C, C++, Java, Python, C#. So computer program is nothing but they are the set of instruction given to a computer to perform a specific operation in order to obtain a desired result. Next one is procedural programming. Any programming language in which the programmer specifies an explicit sequence of steps to follow to produce a result is called as procedural programming. So procedural programming may be the first programming paradigm that a new developer will learn. And it is the one that directly instructs a device on how to finish a task in a logical steps. Let me consider a simple example. Suppose if we are developing a bank application app. So we need to follow certain procedure for that. So the first step is we are going to create an account for an individual person. Once the account has been created, we are going to deposit or we may withdraw the amount from the account. Next one is we can transfer the amount in between two or more accounts. And then we are going to record all the changes that has been done in the account. So what we are doing here is we are following certain procedure when we are developing an bank application app. So in the same fashion, procedural programming involves writing down the list of instruction to tell the computer what it should do step by step to finish a task. So The examples of procedure-oriented programming language are Fortran, COBOL, etc. Next one is structured programming. As the word suggests, that it can be defined as a programming approach in which the program is made as a single structure. It means that the code will execute the instruction one after the other. So it is an organized approach to programming which involves the use of three basic control structure, which is nothing but sequence, branch, and looping. Here the idea of top-down design is to break the large program into the smaller program until it can implement the solution for the computer. Now when we are developing the bank application, at that time also one person will not be developing that particular application. That application will be divided into several phases, and each phase will be given to each person, and each person will write the set of instruction there and they will come up with the solution, and later on all these solutions will be combined together. So here the approach is nothing but we are dividing the program into the smaller program, and each small program is going to give me the desired output, and later it will be combined together. So C followed the top-down principle of programming. Next one is the characteristics of structured programming. The first one is here, emphasis is on algorithm. That means the importance is given to the algorithm. So whenever a program statement or a problem statement is given to you, first we are going to give importance to the algorithm. That means algorithm is nothing but it is a step-by-step instruction in order to obtain a desired output. So once you get the problem statement, you are going to first write the algorithm for that, and then you are going to move ahead with the program. Next one is large programs are divided into smaller programs known as functions. So first we need to understand what is function. Function is nothing but it is a set of instruction that we are going to write in order to obtain the desired output, or they are also called as the modules, or they are also called as the subprogram. So whenever we are developing any application, we'll be dividing that application into the small program. So if I consider an example of arithmetic application, I'll be writing the code for calculating sum of two numbers, then subtracting, then division, then multiplication. So each program will be performing its own set of operation in order to obtain the result, and later on it will be combined together so that my task will be easy. So in case of structured programming, large programs will be divided into small programs which are known as functions. Next point is data move openly around the system from one function to another. There is no kind of security is provided for any data here. That is the reason it can move openly around the system. Next one is functions transform the data from one form to another. So based on the requirement, it can transform the data from one form to another. And the last one is it employs the top-down approach in a program design. So as we know, top-down analysis or approach, it is nothing but dividing the large program into the smaller program. So structured programming is nothing but here the importance is given to algorithm. So whenever a problem statement is given to you, first you are going to write the algorithm, which is nothing but the step-by-step instruction. If we are writing the large programs, then that program has to be divided into the smaller program, wherein each small program will be getting with the desired output. And later, these functions can be used in other programs as well. Next one is data move openly around the system. That means there is no kind of security is provided for the structured programming. Next one is it can transform data from one form to another, and it employs the top-down approach in a program design. Next is OOP. As we can see, OOP stands for Object-Oriented Programming. So it is a programming which is based on the concept of objects which can contain both data and function. Let me consider a simple example of a human body. A human body consists of eyes, nose, ears, etc. At the same time, human body can perform different operations like the human body can run, can walk, can eat. So these are the operations that will be performed by a human body. So here eyes, nose, ears, they represent what? They are the attributes of a human body that represents the data of a human body. At the same time, when we say functions, they are nothing but the operations that has been performed by the human body. So human body is nothing but it is a combination of both attributes as well as the operations that will be performed by him. So object-oriented programming, as we can see, it is based on the concept of objects which can contain both data and function. OOP emphasizes on data unlike the structured programming which emphasizes on procedure. So here the ideology is to unite both data and functions that operate on the data into a single unit called as object. So object-oriented programming aims to implement the real-world entities like inheritance, polymorphism, data hiding, etc. So as you can see in the diagram now, if I consider each class here, so each class comprises of the data as well as the function. So together they are forming one class, and in between the objects will communicate with each other with respect to the class. So object is nothing but it is an identifiable entity with some characteristics and behavior. Next is features of object-oriented programming. So we have already seen the features of structured programming, wherein the emphasis was given or importance was given to the algorithm rather than the data. Their programs were divided into the smaller programs which were known as the function. Data was moving openly around the system. That means there is no kind of security that was provided to the given data. And there it followed the top-down approach. So now in case of object-oriented programming, the importance is given to the data here rather than the procedure. So what we are storing in a class, that is very important. Next one is programs are divided into what are known as object. So OOP organizes, as we know, everything around the data or the object rather than the functions or the logic. So an object can be defined as a data field that has a unique attributes and the behavior. Next one is data is hidden and cannot be accessed by the external functions. So in case of object-oriented programming, we can provide a kind of security for the given data. When we are writing a data, only the member function, only the operations that we are going to perform in a class, they are going to access that particular data. That means we are providing a kind of security to the given data there. So the data can be provided with the security with the help of the access specifier like private, public or protected. Next is object will communicate with each other here through the function. When you are storing the data and function into a particular class, when you try to instantiate that one, then object will communicate with each other in order to perform the operations. Then it follows the bottom-up approach. So in this design, we need to understand what is bottom-up approach. So in case of bottom-up approach, the individual parts of the system are specified in detail. And then these parts are linked together to form the larger components, which are again in turn linked until a complete system is formed. So bottom-up approach is nothing but individual parts of the system will be specified in detail. Later, they all will be linked together and until a complete entire system is formed. So in case of object-oriented programming, here the importance is given to the data rather than procedure. They are divided into, programs are divided into what are known as object, which consist of the data field that has a unique attributes and the behaviors. Then here data is hidden and cannot be accessed by the external function. Then object will communicate with each other through the function and it follows the bottom-up approach. As we have already seen the definitions of procedure-oriented programming as well as the object-oriented programming, now let's see what is the difference between these two things. So let me see one by one. So the first one, in case of procedure-oriented programming language, here the programs are divided into the smaller part which are called as the function. That means the large programs are divided into the smaller programs which are known as the functions. So functions are nothing but what? They are the set of instruction which will perform a particular task. Whereas in case of object-oriented programming, the program is divided into the smaller parts which are called as the objects. So in case of OOP, as we know, everything revolves around the object. Next one is procedural programming follows the top-down approach, whereas OOP follows bottom-up approach. So top-down is nothing but the large programs will be divided into the smaller programs, whereas in case of bottom-up approach, each component will be having the detailed analysis and later they will be linked together to form a complete system. Next one is, in case of procedure-oriented programming, there are no access specifier available. But whereas in case of object-oriented programming, if I want to provide a certain security to the given data, then they can be provided with the help of the 3-access specifier, which is nothing but the private, public, and protected. Next one is adding new data and function is not easy in case of POP. Whereas it is very easy to add new data as well as a function in case of object-oriented programming. Procedural programming does not have any proper way of hiding the data, so it is very less secure. Whereas in case of object-oriented programming, it provides the concept of data hiding so as to make it very secure, which comes under the abstraction, which is going to represent only the essential features and rest all data will be hidden in case of object-oriented programming. In procedural programming, function is more important rather than the data. But whereas in case of object-oriented programming, it is reverse of that. Data is more important rather than the function. Procedural programming is based on the unreal world, whereas object-oriented programming is based on the real world applications. The examples for procedural-oriented programming are C, Fortran, Pascal, Basic, etc. Whereas in case of object-oriented programming language, the different examples are C++, Java, Python, C#, etc. Now let's study in detail regarding the characteristics of OOP. So as we know, OOP stands for Object-Oriented Programming. OOP was designed in order to overcome the drawbacks of structured as well as the modular programming approach. And the general concepts of OOP includes here the first one, class, object, abstraction, data encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, dynamic binding, and message passing. So we are going to study in detail regarding all these topics. Now let's see one by one the characteristics of OOP. So the first one is object. In order to understand the OOP technology, we need to better understand what is object. So if you look around the whole world, it is filled with the objects like table, pen, paper, dog, cat, keyboard, etc. So each and everything is filled in the world which is made up of object. So object can be either a living or it can be a non-living entity. So we can say object is a real world element which is an identifiable entity with some characteristics and behavior. Let me consider a simple example. If a car is there with the different names and brands, all the car share some common properties like wheel, color, price, manufacturer, etc. And at the same time, it consists of functions like open door, changing the gear, pressing the clutch and accelerator. So here car is an object which includes data member as well as member function together. Let me consider one more example. If I consider the object as dog, so it consists of certain attributes as well as the behavior. The attributes like the name, color and breed. They represents the attributes for a particular dog. All the dogs will be having the name, color as well as the breed. And it exhibits the common behavior like barking, fetching as well as wagging. So it constitutes together the attributes and the behavior for a particular object. So object is nothing but it is an identifiable entity which consists of the characteristics and behavior. Next one is class. We now know what are objects, as objects are nothing but they are the real world entity and each object is having the data members as well as the member function. So in an object, only function has the ultimate authority to access the data. No other function can directly access the given data. So students, in a real world, we often come across with the object of the same kind. For example, if I consider here PUC students, degree students as well as master students, they will be having the common properties as well as the behavior, or they will be having the common attributes and the behavior. The attributes like they will be having the roll number, the name, then fees. All the students will be having these attributes. At the same time, they will be having common functionalities. So together they will be formed. So here PUC, degree and master students, they represents the object which belongs to the class called as student. So how we are going to define a class? It is a blueprint or a prototype from which the objects are created. Or we can say it is a user-defined data type which will holds its own data members and the member function. So this was regarding the classes and object. Next one is abstraction. So abstraction is nothing but it represents only the essential features of an entity without including the background details or the explanations about it. So abstraction shows only the relevant details and rest other details are hidden. For example, when we are making a call, it only concatenate with the number and display it on the screen. but we really don't know how it connects with the other numbers or the devices. So the only necessary information will be displayed on the screen. How that connection will be done, that is hidden over here. Let me consider one more example. When we send the data from the Bluetooth, we don't know how it connects with the other phone or how it sends the data. So the only necessary information will be displayed and rest all will be hidden. So abstraction is nothing but it is an act of representing the essential features of an entity without including the background details about it. Next one is data encapsulation. So as we can see, data encapsulation is nothing but it is the wrapping up of data and function into a single unit called as class. So both abstraction and encapsulation works hand in hand because abstraction shows a particular detail which will be accessed by the encapsulation. And the concept of insulating the data from the direct access by the program is called as data hiding. So in real time, we are using encapsulation for the security purpose. So example for the data encapsulation is class. As we know, class is nothing but it is the combination of data members as well as the member functions. So it is the wrapping up of data and function into the single unit. Next one is inheritance. Inheritance, it is the process by which the object of one class acquires the properties of the object of another class. So it is as good as saying that we are going to inherit the properties from the existing class. If two or more class are already existing, it will be having its own features. So if I create one more class, that class need not have to add that same feature again. Instead of writing that feature again and again, we can use the concept of reusability. The feature which is already present in the existing class that can be inherited. So it is possible to add extra or new feature to an existing class without modifying it. So inheritance is nothing but it is a process by which the object of one class acquire the properties of object of another class. I hope it is clear now. Let's see the next feature of OOP, which is nothing but the polymorphism. Polymorphism is the ability of the object to take more than one form at different instances. Let me consider an example of a mobile. So if I consider a mobile, we can turn on the phone by one button. At the same time, I can turn off the phone with the help of the same button. So this button is exhibiting more than one form at a different instances. This polymorphism supports the concept of operator overloading and function overloading. So let's see what is operator overloading. The process of making an operator to exhibit different behaviors in different instances is known as operator overloading. Let me consider an example of plus, the operator as plus. When I add two numbers, when I consider two numbers and operator as plus there, it is going to add that one and gives away the result. But whereas when I consider the same thing with the string there, string is nothing but the sequence of character. So when I consider the same operator with the string, it is going to concatenate, it is going to combine those two strings. So operator overloading is nothing but it exhibits the different behaviors in different instances. Next one is it supports function overloading. The process of making a function to exhibit behavior in different instances is known as function overloading. So if I consider an example for a function overloading as the sum function. So the sum is a function which can calculate the sum of two numbers. At the same time, it can also calculate the sum of three numbers here. So it is exhibiting the different behavior in different instances as both the functions are having same name here. So polymorphism is nothing but what? It is the ability of an object to take more than one form at a different instances. Next one is dynamic binding. Dynamic binding means linking of procedure call to the code associated with a given procedure during the runtime. And it is also associated with the polymorphism and inheritance. For example, if we have two classes, let it be a parent and a child class. If both the class have the same function, then in this objects need to determine which method is to be executed during the runtime. So it supports the function overriding. If two or more classes are having the same functionalities, then it is the job of the object to determine which is to be executed during the runtime. So dynamic binding is nothing but it is the linking of the procedure call to the code associated with the given procedure during the runtime. Next one is message passing. In message passing, objects can communicate with one another by sending and receiving the information from each other. Therefore, a message invokes a procedure in the receiving object to generate the desired output. So message usually involves specifying the name of the object, the name of the function and the information which we want to send. So message passing is nothing but it is the communication between two or more objects by sending and receiving the message. So when you are sending the message, it involves the name of the object, the name of the function and the information to be sent. Now that we have seen the characteristics of OOP, which includes class, object, abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, dynamic binding, and message passing. Now let's see what are the advantages of OOP. So as we know, OOP is an efficient programming which help us to overcome the drawbacks of procedural and structured programming approach. So there are various advantages. Let's see one by one. The first one is inheritance. So as we know, it extends the use of the existing classes and eliminates the redundant code. And hence it supports the code reusability, which means if we are having two or more classes and if they are having certain features, we need not have to add the same feature in the new class. Instead of that, we are going to inherit those features as inheritance supports the concept of reusability. Next one is data hiding. It helps us to build the secure programs that cannot be invaded by the code in other parts of the program, which indicates the data abstraction. That means we are going to represent only the essential feature and rest all details we are going to hide over here in case of OOP. The next one is the work can be easily divided since the projects are object based and each object can be developed by different people resulting in the faster code development, which indicates the modularity concept. That means dividing the programs here into what are known as object. OOP also upgrade, or it can easily upgrade from smaller to larger system. Here, the complexity of the software is easily manageable, tested and maintained. So these are the advantages of OOP. Now that we have seen the advantages of OOP, let's see what are the disadvantages of OOP. Comparatively, there are less number of disadvantages of OOP. So the first one is OOP software do not have the set of standards. It uses some tricky methods to do the programming. Special skills are required in terms of design skill, programming skill, and thinking in terms of objects, which are required for a programmer. Proper planning and designing are required before programming using the OOP technique. So these are the disadvantages of OOP. Now that we have seen the advantages and disadvantages of OOP, now let's see the last one, which is the OOP applications. So the OOP applications are the first one, object-oriented database. So as we know, database is a collection of a related information. But when we say object-oriented database, it is nothing but the collection of object-oriented programming and relational database. So the various elements can be created using object-oriented programming and it can be stored in a relational database. Next one is the hypermedia and hypertext. So hypertext is a text which contains links to the other text, whereas hypermedia is not only constrained to text, but it can link to images, videos, graphics, etc. Next one is user interface design of Windows operating system. We can easily interact with the Windows operating system. There will be the user interface or interaction with the Windows operating system. Next one is real-time system and embedded system. The example for the real-time system are like traffic control system, or I can say the air conditioner system, or I can say the electric power system. Whereas the examples for the embedded system, it includes the automotive. Today, most of the cars you might have seen, they are working on the embedded system. Next one is artificial intelligence and expert system. The examples for artificial intelligence and expert system are Google Map, or you can consider face detection and recognition system. Next one is decision support and office automation system. Next one is CAD and CAM system. CAD stands for computer aided designing and CAM stands for computer aided manufacturing. This CAD and CAM are used to design as well as to manufacture the products. So CAD and CAM are basically used to design and manufacture the products. The last one is simulation and modeling. So simulation is nothing but it is the imitation of the operation of a process, or it is the imitation of a system that represents the operation over time. For example, the driving simulation. So these are the applications of OOP. Object-oriented database, hypermedia and hypertext, user interface design of a Windows operating system, then artificial intelligence and expert system, decision support system and office automation system, CAD and CAM, and then simulation and modeling. Students, this was regarding the chapter OOP concept, that is object oriented programming concepts. Now these are the few questions which I have listed for your assignments. Please go through this one. All the best.